Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you this evening to the Keep Punching University Zoom here on Monday night. It's the 11th of August. We're already moving along in 2025, and we've got a great guest on here with us this evening. This Zoom has been going on for over 30 years on Monday night. Of course, it wasn't originally a Zoom, it was a conference call, and we progressed with the electronics to where now we can see you guys. And just remember that we can see you guys. So make sure you're not doing anything that you don't want seen while we're here on the Zoom tonight. My name is Dany Martin. If I haven't said that already, I'm originating this from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My wife, Debbie, and I have been partners with the Juice Plus Company for a little over 35 years now. And this lady that you're going to hear from this evening has been a good friend of ours for at least 25 years. But I want to give Dr. Anderson a proper introduction, Dr. Mary Anderson. She's been a pediatrician for many years. She currently resides in the New Orleans, Louisiana area, but she's originally from Southwest Louisiana, a little town or city called Lake Charles, Louisiana. She received her education at Baylor University and the University of Texas Medical School in San Antonio. She's done postgraduate work in public health and was chief resident of pediatrics at Ochsner Hospital in New Orleans. She is a fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and she served as associate professor of pediatrics at Tulane University, as well as our university right here based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana State University, LSU. She started private practice in 1978 and was a lead physician at the Pediatric Center, which Ochsner Hospital later engaged in a partnership with. Dr. Anderson received recognition for being a top pediatric physician in New Orleans and served as medical director for the Louise S. Davis Developmental Center. Hopefully I got that right. She can correct me if I did not. Dr. Anderson is now retired, and she and her husband of over 40 years, Ray Bordelon, they have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and they still, as I said, reside in the New Orleans area. Dr. Anderson's interest in educating parents about proper diet began very early in her practice. I mean, think about that. I'm going back to the late 70s, guys, and this is real unique. I'm going to have her talk about this. But the introduction of Juice Plus and its ability to provide complete daily whole food plant-based nutrition was a perfect addition for the opportunity for her to help families, adults, and children. Nutritional counseling and her work in many volunteer community efforts. And I'm telling you, she's involved in a lot of community efforts. This lady's on the go and she's busy. That's what consumes her retirement time today. Guys, we want to welcome Dr. Mary Anderson. Dr. Anderson, thanks for joining us this evening.
I am so very privileged to be here at a time when technology allows me to speak around the world. It is something that is striking me with a small bit of awe at the moment, because this is my first Zoom where that opportunity has presented itself to me. So around the world, to all those listening and everyone here in the States, good evening. And I'm very happy to be here with Dany and Carrie and Mickey.
Awesome. Well, I want you, if there's anything I left out on the career, you can tell me a little bit more about that. But I want to get into this early, nutritional advice and stuff for parents and things. Is there anything I missed on there, or anything you need to correct on that bio I went through? You didn't know I was going to go through that. It was
exhaustive. You must have done some digging, and it reminded me of things that were behind a closed door that you opened again. Yes, that was all correct. Thank you for an exhaustive review.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Anderson didn't send me that. That's just something I've collected over the years from knowing her and put together. So here's a few questions I have for you. The first one I want to talk about is early on, you had either a nutritionist or dietitian or whatever on staff with you in your office. And this was so many years ago, as I talked about. I think that was quite unusual at that time, especially for medical doctors to be concerned with teaching parents and children about nutrition and wellness and that type of thing. Tell us a little bit about that.
I'd be happy to expand on that. Being traditionally Western trained, I'll set that stage for the audience by saying that classically in our 4 years of medical school, prior to the time you start internship, the classroom work included no nutrition lessons. That was not part of a semester, if you would. We had no training in nutrition. Beyond that, when we were in our residency, once in a while, a nun who was on staff at my med school would give some lectures, but that was essentially the extent of it. I was gifted in life with having had parents who both liked to cook, grandparents who all cooked very, very well. And from the standpoint of knowing where to shop in the grocery store, that was on my mother's apron strings, if you would. So I had some beginning knowledge that maybe others would not have had I not had that home background. So my interest in nutrition for children specifically was launched as I started my own private practice by a stimulus that was on the cover of a either Time or Newsweek. Rob Reiner. Do you all remember that actor, Rob Reiner? Back in the early 80s, he got completely interested in nutrition for infants. And he worked with a whole bunch of neurologists, and they uncovered some data that as I read this article completely, I was very stunned by a key fact that was absolutely my driving force from that point thereafter. The neurologists learned that the developing human, from the time that neural crest forms, even in your utero, the diet the mother consumes is infinitely important, but as the human accepts life, the mother begins feeding this baby, there is a window of 8 years, the first 8 years of life, where the genetic potential you have that the Lord gives you for your brain's development, that potential can be maximized in this window of the first 8 years to help the brain grow to its potential given by God in the first 8 years only. If an infant, a toddler, a young child, sadly has malnutrition during that first window of time, they never achieve the IQ that they might have had. Does that make sense as I explain it? All right. Well, that was like a bucket of cold water on me. In the late 70s, early 80s, at that time, most mothers with newborn infants were bottle feeding. Well, we knew that breastfeeding was much better. And I think most of your audience by this point in time has learned the whys and wherefores that breastfeeding is better. But clearly, the patients coming to my office were opting for bottle feeding. So that was a very, very important issue that I had to discuss with them right away. That began at the very first visit in the hospital. What are you planning for your baby? Would you like to try breastfeeding? At the hospital, they always have some breastfeeding consultants, but they're lost to the mother's utilization as soon as mom goes home. So right off the bat, I decided to put a consultant breast nutritionist on my staff to be able to help moms work for weeks and weeks and weeks sometime to actually secure good breastfeeding. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's difficult. I wanted to make sure that for those who had any sort of issues, that there was somebody in my office that if they phoned in, they could talk to this person. So, and they were able to meet with her in the office. Shortly after that, as time goes on, my emphasis about good nutrition was always there. And part of the intake history on a child's annual well exam was how well does this child eat? What are your typical meals like? So knowing that most of the population were driving through the fast foods, shopping in the center of the store, ignoring the periphery of the store where the whole foods are and dairy, I then moved ahead and secured a registered dietitian to be in my office to see patients again who were in need. And she was able to sit down for an hour at a time and go over every detail necessary for that child's particular needs. And they would come back and see her. She was well liked. She was an asset to the office. She truly was. So that was where I differed from, I was the first in my area to do that, but it came out of that impetus to really offer that difference for the opportunity for those children to maximize their growth potential and their learning potential.
That's awesome. And was this your private practice? In other words, you weren't practicing in a big, large clinic or hospital.
No, this was my private practice. Yes.
So that's what I find is so unusual, especially that many years ago, because nowadays so many pediatricians, healthcare professionals are in big clinics, and they may have access to some of this, but you doing that individually,
Correct.
and I think explaining that 8-year window, that's very interesting there. But I have to say, you couldn't go home with them and make sure they were eating right, correct? And so that leads me to kind of my next question here about our products, Juice Plus, because I know you embraced the Juice Plus concept a long time ago, and you have embraced it and been an advocate for it. You can tell me, but I think over 25 years now. How did that come about? And I guess it was kind of an answer, knowing your background, trying to teach these moms and dads and children about nutrition. I want to hear that story about,
I'm
check
glad
it
to
out
share
or
it.
whatever.
I'm glad to share it. It began with a fellow physician at my area hospital. We were both on staff there. In fact, this gentleman was one of the senior anesthesiologists on staff, a very great reputation guy. He taps me on the shoulder one day and asked me, "Do you have a minute?" Well, sure. Well, I want to tell you about something. Sit down right here. So fortunately, there was a bench right there, and we just immediately sat right down, and he began telling me about what he had just learned about, which was your company's Juice Plus product. Back then it was fruits and vegetables. He talked to me for about 5 minutes, but because of his keen interest in what the product was and how it was put together and the story that he had learned behind it, he asked my permission. He says, "I would really, really like you to learn more about this." And because of his interest in it, I agreed. And he arranged to have a key person come to my private office at the time. He came with him, and that person, just so everyone on the call will know, happens to be the esteemed Dany Martin. Dany Martin had met Dr. Tahir, and that relationship resulted in the two of them coming to my office so that Dany could tell me more about what the product was and why I might be interested in it. I suppose we talked for about 30 minutes during a brief lunch hour that I had, and Dany left that day after teaching what he knew I would be interested in. He says, "Please, I have for you our 4 studies. I have 4 studies. Can I leave these with you?" And I said, "Absolutely, I'll be glad to read them." So he left 4 monographs on my desk, and it took me about 3 weeks to finally one day pick them up on the noon break and read them. Well, I gobbled them up, and as I flipped them back over to the front cover, I looked at authorship. One of the studies was authored by the Department of Pharmacology at my med school at the University of Texas Med School, San Antonio. And imagine my surprise when I saw that. I turned right to the telephone, called the school, got one of the authors on the phone and said, "What do you think about this product? I have just read this monograph and I'm very interested." He goes, "Well, that's very easy. I can tell you in 2 seconds. It's the best thing since sliced bread." That's absolutely what his comment was. And of course, he had more to say about it, but that's a permanent memory. So I can understand why you wanted to hear the story again. I think it's kind of a good one too. But that was my introduction, was through you.
Well, and the purpose of that story to me is guys, you know, as a partner with the Juice Plus company, I didn't know you that well, really didn't have any credibility necessarily with you at that time, but it just shows how unique and how credible the research is on the Juice Plus products. And of course, today we have 48 published studies. Back then, we had just a handful of those. So,
right,
you know, you checked it out, you used the product. So, what was kind of the reasoning? Here we are, and I don't know when that was, how many years ago, but what do you think about it today?
That was
What's
in
that?
90, that was in 95, I believe.
Yeah. So, you know, how long ago? 30 years ago?
Yeah.
So, what do you think about it today, and why do you still embrace this product 30 years later?
Oh, the answer to me is rather profound, and that's pretty simple. In that time, um, because I have a penchant for doing deep dive into nutritional information about what we have learned scientifically through good research about why the 5 a day that one should consume of fruits and vegetables became 9 to 13. The recommendations for what you should eat as far as fruits and vegetables not only increased, but the science behind why became an open book. Nutritional information about why good foods help your body. There's so much that has been developed that when you get into it and start learning, you can't help but be more and more motivated to share this information with other people, to let them know without consuming that quantity per day. And it's a lot, because 9 to 13 in the serving size that you should have, which is a half cup to a cup, is voluminous. People, even the best cooks that really try, it's very difficult to get that volume in. So because Juice Plus is a product that contains all of these fruits and vegetables that are the natural product, being able to take those capsules to help bridge the gap. So many people listening may have already heard that phrase, between what you should consume and what you actually consume. It's a no-brainer. If you have the opportunity to help your metabolism by virtue of that consumption, so that every cell of your body can work and put out from its factory doors 5-star product, rather than limping along with less ideal food or foods that are harmful for you, being complete allows every cell to work properly. So that simple statement to me is why I am motivated, not only from myself and my family to consume it, but to recommend it to everybody else, because it helps folks have a method that is all of a sudden simpler for gaining magnitude.
Awesome. Now, for those of you that might be listening in, either live or if we get the recording out, you know, you may want to know a little bit more about Juice Plus, and whoever shared this with you, invited you on, can do that with you. You know, Dr. Anderson talked about back in 1995, we had a fruit and vegetable product. Today, we have stayed in our plant-based whole food lane as a company. And it's interesting because the fruit and vegetable powders, we added a berry powder to that. And those three products you now can take in the capsule. We still have that. You can consume it in a chewable form, like a little gummy. We call it a soft chew. And you can even take it and mix it in water as a powder. We call it a Juice Plus Superfoods. And you can just drink it, you know, that way. So there's different ways to consume that. And of course, we've added a plant-based omega on. We have a couple of protein powders. We have something called Luminate for brain health. So our product line has expanded since 1993 or 95 when we first launched Juice Plus. But we, as I said, have stayed in that whole food plant-based lane, and we're going to continue to do that. Now, you mentioned metabolism. You and I have talked about that a little bit. Is there anything else you want to add on that about having an impact on people? Because I remember the creator of Juice Plus, Dr. Santillo, told me one time, he said, one of the great things about Juice Plus in the powder form is it's pre-digested. So when it's reconstituted with water, it goes to work. So you want to expand a little bit more on that, maybe, Dr. Mary?
Absolutely. There are 2 points, A and B, I'd like to expand on each. One of the first things that I ever taught about how incredible this product was that it offered for people who were accustomed to try to improve their health with vitamins. They would take vitamin pills very quickly. We've heard for almost 3 decades now in the news from time to time, vitamins don't work. The reason that is so is because extracted vitamins from sources unknown, put into a petrochemical rosin filler as a hard pill or even capsule form, if those are swallowed as one entity, a C, an A, anything, or even a combination of some, they actually are swallowed, go into the intestine, but in majority are not absorbed. They're not then utilized by the body. And the reason is multifold. Your state of health, your age, dictate how much you can break apart in your intestine, absorb, and then bring across the brush border to be used. Those factors create a situation where not much of it goes through. But the main reason and the most important reason that it doesn't work in your body is because that solo entity coming through, swimming around in your bloodstream, trying to go into different cells, those cells do not recognize them because they are not within the whole food. One apple contains 15,000 phytochemicals, phytonutrients, and the vitamin C in there is bound biochemically to other polyphenols. When you eat the apple, you can absorb that vitamin C. The body recognizes it because it's in a chemical compound that the DNA programmed in those cells goes, whammo, I need you and I'm going to grab you and use you. That's the synergy of things that you need being bound, if you want to, holding hands with one another, synergy, working together. That's the only time that your body recognizes those compounds. So the whole food is absolutely necessary. Without it being a whole food substrate, a solo pill doesn't work. That's one. Now, when you talk about metabolism, there's so many things currently in our existence in Western countries, Western world, so many adverse things that have taken place that downgrade quality metabolism. Pesticides in the environment, anything in the foods that shouldn't be there, dyes, pollution in the air, stress in lifestyle. There's so many factors that down regulate your body's ability to metabolize incoming substrate to create a product. Juice Plus, because it is so filled with antioxidants, it gets rid of the free radicals that are produced by all the stress that I just mentioned. It balances that out. So consuming enough fruits and vegetables is more than just getting the right entities. It's the electrical, if you would, activity of anti-inflammation, antioxidants that balance out free radicals. That's hugely important to reduce disease state in any individual, any kind of chronic inflammatory disease, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, all these things. And that's why in the past, since the time of my education, it wasn't over then. The amount of knowledge I have now has exploded because of what we have learned about how the body really works and how primally important the gut is and how probiotics and prebiotics take care of the individual and how good bacteria and bad bacteria live in there. And it's so important to have a preponderance of the good bacteria rather than bad, because if you get out of balance, the bad bacteria produce inflammatory things that go through your body and cause disease, go through that lining of the intestine and cause disease. The good bacteria produce enzymes that your body actually needs to do the good work. So, even to the point of what cleansers are in your house. Do you know anything called antibacterial? If you've got the Sandy wipes and all that stuff, do you know that you're getting rid of good bacteria in your gut that way? You can actually clean your house so much that your bad bacteria take over. And that's the truth. The kind of soap you use, the cleansers you use, probiotics are better than antibiotics. They are the opposite of each other. All right. You need to do everything you can to keep the good bacteria better. Okay.
Absolutely.
I diverged.
That's interesting. And I know in closing here, we could talk for hours. Maybe we'll have to have you come back on one of these again and we can continue the conversation.
Did I get to all of your questions?
Yeah, your wealth of knowledge is incredible. And we appreciate your time here. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with in closing? You know, a couple of things is it's a no-brainer. That stuck with me. And of course, on the promotional flyer, we had the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
I just love that quote. That's a real, you know, if you think about two very intelligent medical doctors and scientists talking with each other, and that's how they explain it. It's better than sliced bread. I love it. I understand that. Yeah. So anything in closing you'd like to leave us with?
Well, first, I hope all of your listeners take the time to review at least the summary of the research that system by system tells what's been proven to have benefited people who consume Juice Plus. But even though my family's journey with Juice Plus has been close to 25 years, a little more maybe than 2, aligning with this company offered the means and motivational opportunity, even after my retirement from pediatrics, to exponentially expand the way I prescribe for people a better journey for their health. So I am immensely grateful that I ever learned about it, because along the way, the excitement of it, being with the people who belong to the company, group after group, it's always been the catalyst and stimulus for my penchant for this continued education into diet, health by nutrition. Because what it boils down to is give yourself the way and the advantage, very quickly I'll add, and the advantage of using Juice Plus to offer yourself the best functional nutrition that you can. That's my final thought. Is
Wow,
to seek functional nutrition.
what a quote that is. Well, Dr. Anderson, we thank you for taking time out to be with us this evening. I know you're a busy person. We've been trying to schedule you for this for a little while now, but we finally got the schedules together.
Well, I'm happy to come on anytime you like.
Awesome.
Anytime I can
Awesome.
help any of our leaders, I'm there.
We will keep that in mind and take you up on that. So with that, guys, we're going to end the recording, and then we will be able to unmute these lines.